Hello, everyone. A very logical weekend to all of you. Yes, weekend again, because weekends are for a particular purpose. So whatever you have missed doing in the week, you do that in the weekend. This is what you need to do with your preparations. So if you have missed seeing any of the editorial discussion recording, kindly do that also. Why? Because I've been giving you a little extra in the previous recording as well as today also we have something extra. So let's see what we are doing today, 4th February, the first editorial of the Indian Express. Here we'll start with the reading, a time to pause. Here, over the course of this week, central banks across major developed economies have continued to raise interest rates in the fight against inflation. You need to understand, with the increase of the interest rates, how is inflation going to be controlled? Okay, if you can understand that what the RBI does or what the central bank does, inflation is a lot of liquidity in the market. So when the interest rates are increased, the people will be induced to save their money a little. So they will not be spending unnecessarily, right? When the spending is less, that means that money is not there in the market, it is with the bank. Right? I'm giving it to you in a very simple language or simple explanation. So when we keep that money in the bank and we do not spend it, that means that money is not in the market. So the money is absorbed from the market. तो वो धीरे 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 इन्फ्लेशन को कंट्रोल किया जाएगा. That is a very simple thing. And those who are reading economics, those who have studied economics, would know it or would understand it also. So on Wednesday, the US Federal Reserve raised the benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points. On Thursday, the Bank of England increased interest rates by 50 basis points to a multi-year high of 4%. Also on Thursday, the European Central Bank raised interest. Now it is talking about the Federal Bank, the Bank of England, the European Central Bank. That means all this is an example of what? Of the central banks across the major developed economies. However, with data pointing towards a softening of prices, the commentary accompanying the policy announcements suggests that globally, the monetary policy tightening cycle may be nearing its peak. Monetary policy tightening cycle may be nearing its peak. इसका मतलब अब वो अपने अपर लिमिट तक पहुंचने वाली है. The signals from the central banks are clear. After hiking interest rates by 75 basis points in 4 consecutive meetings, the US Fed has in the last 2 meetings slowed the pace of its rate hikes. And inflation in the US has begun to trend lower. The consumer price index rose 6.5% in December, down from the high of 9.1% in June. Right, this is what he's talking about, the US Fed. Right, the CPI hota hai iska, consumer price index. This is how you would measure inflation. It would be a CPI or it would be a WPI. That is a wholesale price index. So, as Powell, the chairman, acknowledged, inflation data received over the past 3 months shows a welcome reduction in the monthly pace of increases. We will need substantially more evidence to be confident that inflation is on a sustained downward path. So here he comes up with a caution. Why? Because it is declining, it is reducing, but we need to understand that it is on a sustained downward path. Sustained मतलब काफी समय तक ये चलेगा. ऐसे नहीं कि कम होके एकदम से फिर से बढ़ जाए, right? So this indicates that while the fight against inflation is not yet over, the terminal rate at which the central banks will stop hiking and take a pause is approaching. ठीक है, अभी तक पिछले कुछ महीनों से वो धीरे 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 इंक्रीज कर रहे थे इंटरेस्ट रेट. अब वो टॉप तक पीक तक पहुंचने वाला है, तो दे विल स्टॉप. So they will take a pause to see if the inflation is under control now, right? So this is what he's saying, that the central bank has to be very cautious about this. Stop hiking and take a pause. This time period is approaching. Now, in a similar vein, even as the European Central Bank said that it intends to raise the interest rates by another 50 basis points at its March meeting, outlook for inflation is improving. Headline inflation dipped to 8.5% in January, down from 9.2% in December. Bank of England's latest forecast also expects inflation to ease, so dropping below the target of 2%, right? So now the whole paragraph is actually giving you the data. It is giving you two examples to show what the central banks are doing. They are increasing the interest rates, and as a result, what is declining is the inflation. Then it talks about the CPI index, it talks about the headline inflation. So the headline inflation will be that is calculated across the whole year. In that way, thoda sa wo ek, in broadly speaking, that would be the inflation of the year. Early next week, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank will meet for the first time in this calendar year. So, will meet, and that means the RBI has not yet done anything. So, the first paragraph was talking about the central banks in the various economies, the developed economies. Now, RBI is going to meet in um for the first time, it is going to meet in this year. So, recent data released by the government shows that headline retail inflation, here again it is mentioned. So, retail inflation has stayed below the upper threshold of the inflation targeting framework for 2 consecutive months. Headline retail inflation वापस वही आ जाएगा जो हमने पिछले स्लाइड में सीपीआई किया था, कंज्यूमर प्राइस इंडेक्स के हिसाब से जब इन्फ्लेशन मेजर किया जाएगा in the retail, because see, inflation would be in various sectors, right? There is an overall inflation, and then there's inflation in various sectors. So everything is calculated in that manner. पहले सेपरेट सेपरेट सेक्टर्स में भी होगा, फिर एक ओवरऑल भी हो जाएगा. कई बार क्वार्टरली इन्फ्लेशन किया जाता है, वीकली इन्फ्लेशन भी देखा जाता है, monthly inflation hoga. It will be compared to the same month in the previous year and in this year. So there are many formulae that would be applied to see what is the level of inflation. So the headline retail inflation has stayed below the upper threshold of the inflation. That means it has not yet reached the threshold. Threshold yaani limit hota hai. A targeting framework for 2 consecutive months. The union budget has also stuck to the path of fiscal consolidation. It is again something that we have discussed in the last two editorials also. The benchmark 10-year government bond yield has softened since its presentation, indicating that the markets are comfortable with the new fiscal sovereign borrowing program. Sovereign borrowing program would mean the sovereign would stand for the independent country or independent nation. And when they would borrow for their own schemes, that would be a sovereign borrowing program. ये बड़ी सिंपल भाषा में वापस मैंने कहा है, सॉवरेन अगर इंडिपेंडेंट होता है, बोरोइंग और प्रोग्राम का मतलब पता है, तो क्यों कोई कंट्री, एक इंडिपेंडेंट कंट्री अपने लोगों से बोरो करेगी या कहीं से भी बोरो करेगी, तो दैट वुड बी फॉर द वेरियस इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर schemes that they would like, or any other scheme. So, as monetary policy acts with a lag, a pause at this juncture would allow for the implications of the rate hikes carried out so far to be observed across the broader economy. While it is possible that the MPC, so MPC would be the Monetary Policy Committee, may choose to opt for another rate hike. ये हो सकता है. They would choose for another rate hike. The growing dissent within the committee suggests that the hike cycle in India is also nearing its end. That means what the other central banks across the world were thinking of, that they've almost reached the peak. The same thing is with the Reserve Bank of India, because that's the central bank of a country. So that was easy to understand. Now see, what I've done today is coming up with the main ideas, but I have highlighted these sentences क्योंकि बाकी सब क्या था, बाकी सब डेटा था. तो अगर तुम लोग प्रेप अप्लाई कर सकते हो, and I hope you are doing it in your passages, in your reading of the articles. So these three words that I have highlighted, lines. Now see, central banks across the major developed economies have continued to raise interest rates in their fight against inflation. So continue to raise the interest rates, that is the major point. But the signals from the central banks are clear. So when they are increasing the interest rates to fight against inflation, now what is happening? The signals from these banks are clear. What is that? That they are softening, right? धीरे धीरे inflation कम होता जा रहा है. They show a welcome reduction in the monthly pace of the increases. एक और दूसरी बात थी कि every month या every 2 months में when they are increasing the rate, maybe if they are increasing say from 50 basis point, next month they'll increase 35 basis point, उसके बाद इंक्रीज होगा 20 basis points या 25 basis point. So the rate of increase है वो धीरे धीरे डिक्रीज होता जा रहा है. ठीक है, तो बढ़ाते तो हैं लेकिन कम कम बढ़ाते हैं in that way. So they show a welcome reduction in the monthly pace of the increases, and then there was what Mr. Powell has cautioned कि थोड़ा सा हमें ध्यान देना पड़ेगा. किस चीज पर? नेक्स्ट पैरा. Headline retail inflation has stayed below the upper threshold of the inflation. This is now about the RBI targeting framework for 2 consecutive months. Union budget has stuck to the path of fiscal consolidation. So I marked only fiscal consolidation because this is what we have been doing in the last two passages. And then a pause at this juncture would allow for the implications of the rate hikes carried out so far to be observed across the broader economy. इसका मतलब आरबीआई को थोड़ा सा caution रखना चाहिए, थोड़ा सा रुकना चाहिए, देखना चाहिए कि what effect this rate hike is having or has had for the last 2-3 months, right? So here comes the subtitle there. So which is equivalent to the central idea. Now you can see that signals from central banks across the world suggest the rate hike cycle is nearing its peak. RBI must read cautiously. ठीक है, तो तुम भी पहले सिर्फ हेडिंग पढ़ो, because when you read the heading, then you read the passage and then go back to this subheading later on, right? Secondly, if you are able to read the passage and then see whether you are able to justify the title also, then right, so the title was just take a pause. So now you can understand it, because when you are able to do the questions in the RC, there would be a central idea question, there would be a prime concern or objective question, and there can be a title based question also. So from now on, start seeing the title and how you are able to derive the title from the passage that you have read. So धीरे 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 तुम्हें एक आर्टिकल में से ही सारी चीजें समझनी चाहिए, right? Now see what, as I said in the beginning of this, yesterday I gave you at least 8 topics that you had to read, and I hope you have noted them down, right? These are 4 more: consumer price index, government bonds, sovereign borrowing program, fourth industrial revolution. ठीक है, तो फोर्थ इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन के बारे में पढ़ना, पर इसका मतलब ये हो गया कि फर्स्ट इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन भी हुआ था अराउंड 1850 और सो. सेकेंड इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन हुआ था जब कोल एंड स्टील एंड ऑल दीज थिंग्स हैड कम, right? Then there was a third industrial revolution also, and then this is the fourth industrial revolution. So if you are interested, if you want to read something more, kindly read about the first industrial revolution, second, the third, and the fourth that's about to come. ये क्यों आया है? Then I'll tell you how. Here, I gave it in the previous slide, but it is from the second editorial of today, Indian Express only. Right? Here is the fourth industrial revolution, जो कि AI से related है. तो इसका मतलब हमारे पास इसके पहले के 3 भी हैं. उसके बारे में थोड़ा थोड़ा पढ़ना, either 1 or 2 paragraphs anyway on the net, because today is Saturday and then Sunday. Yes, of course you're going to take the mock, but then spend a little more time on this also. So ChatGPT foregrounds need for innovation in education and regulation, gap between technology and policy needs closing. I've given this, why? Because I'm not coming up with the main points in this article. I took this article again just for the sake of the words, right? Because in the previous passage we did not get many words, we had to read it there. So this way you will come up with a few words. So since at least 2015, when Klaus Schwab popularized the term fourth industrial revolution at that year's World Economic Forum, terms like 4IR, that is fourth industrial revolution, artificial intelligence, internet of things, future of work, entered the lexicon of politicians, bureaucrats, consultants and policy analysts. Lexicon would mean the word list. Jargon बोल सकते हो, word list बोल सकते हो, dictionary बोल सकते हो, कुछ भी. With the launch of OpenAI's ChatGPT late last year, the impending changes in the nature of work, creativity, and economy as a whole have moved from being the subject of futuristic jargon to an immediate challenge. तो ये जो जितने वर्ड्स हैं, ठीक है, एआई से रिलेटेड वर्ड्स हैं, हम सोचेंगे कि हाँ आने वाले दिनों में देखेंगे कुछ नए वर्ड्स ऐड होंगे, नहीं, इमीडिएट चैलेंज बन गए हैं अभी ये, तो फ्यूचरिस्टिक जार्गन नहीं है, दिस इज एन इमीडिएट चैलेंज. The transformations the new technology is bound to bring about must be met with swift adjustments in the broader national and international legal and policy architecture. The lag between technology innovation and policy that was seen with the rise of the big data and social media can serve as a lesson. So if there's an advancement in the technology, the policy should advance or change or adjust accordingly and with the same speed. Simultaneously ये होना चाहिए. अगर lagging behind होता है तो फिर problem create करता है. And this is again serving as an example कि देखो पिछली बार इन दोनों के बीच में synchronization नहीं था, इसीलिए problem था. So the point of this paragraph is that they should be well adjusting to each other. So sample some developments over just the last few days. Again, examples. A judge in Colombia included his conversations with ChatGPT in a ruling. Microsoft is integrating the bot with its search engine Bing and other products. Google is reportedly trying to launch a similar tool, and there are reports that ChatGPT can already code at entry level for Google engineers. All this on the heels of concerns about plagiarism in universities and beyond, as well as the fear that many white collar jobs may become redundant in the coming years as AI becomes more ubiquitous and sophisticated, right? Now, these were all examples, but this contained a few words. On the heels of is an idiom, तो हम समझ सकते हैं idioms को literally समझना चाहिए, contextually apply करना चाहिए. तो if somebody is on the heels, राइट, मतलब आप ऐसे सोचो कितनी सारी मूवीज में होता है ना कि चोर चोर हो या कोई हो ऐसे आगे भागते रहते हैं और द पुलिस आर ऑन द हील्स, ठीक है, बस पकड़ में ही आने वाले हैं इस तरीके से. तो ऑन द हील्स इज somebody who is following very closely. प्लेगरिज्म इज स्टीलिंग, ठीक है, जब आप किसी और का कॉम्पोजिशन स्टील करते हो, so that amounts to plagiarism, piracy you can say. White collar jobs, I have given this word recently in the vocab sheet, जो 10 सवाल करके vocab sheet आती है आपके पास daily वाली, and I hope you are doing that also. So the last vocab sheet had this white collar job, the previous one I think so. So white collar job का मतलब होता है office jobs, ठीक है, और इसके साथ हमने blue collar jobs भी किए, but I'll take this, I'll discuss this after the reading. And ubiquitous is something that is existing, that is pervasive, you can say. हर कहीं पे universal कर सकते हो, right? It is pervasive. Ubiquitous is omnipresent. So you get two words, four words here: existing, omnipresent, pervasive, and universal. And ubiquitous, of course, you have the word. So the concerns around social media's influence on politics and society became sharp in the aftermath of the 2016 US presidential elections and accusations of voter manipulation by foreign agents. Much of the world is still struggling with the questions raised then. The issue of piracy and regulating the relationship between data principals and fiduciaries has been one that India has been grappling with. अगर वो इशू है तो इंडिया उस इशू से अभी भी डील कर रहा है, हैंडल कर रहा है उस इशू को फॉर एटलीस्ट हाफ अ डिकेड. पिछले 4 5 6 सालों तक वो डील ही कर रहा है उसे, मतलब इट इज हैंडलिंग दैट इशू, इट इज स्ट्रगलिंग, यू कैन से, यू कैन ऑल्सो यूज दिस वर्ड स्ट्रगलिंग. तो ग्रैपलिंग विद का मतलब स्ट्रगल कर रहा है अभी तक उस इशू से, क्योंकि इशू है. Now, the common refrain among policymakers around the world has been that policy innovation and regulatory frameworks are almost always playing catch up with technology. That gap must not become a chasm. ठीक है, हम यहाँ पे समझ में आ जाता है कि बात किसकी कर रहे हैं. टेक्नोलॉजी अगर आगे बढ़ती जा रही है तो जो पॉलिसी है वो थोड़ा तो टाइम लेती है बदलने में, राइट? तो दिस इज द गैप. Now the person says that this gap is okay, fine. जैसे टेक्नोलॉजी आगे बढ़ती जाएगी पॉलिसी को उसके हिसाब से चेंज होने में थोड़ा बहुत टाइम लगेगा, तो देयर विल बी अ गैप. but this gap should not change into a chasm. So chasm का मतलब हो गया अगर पॉलिसी यहां रहती है, right? So now we are talking about this. Now this is a huge gap. So a huge gap will be called a chasm. ठीक है, जैसे एक बड़ा खाई होता है, अब लोगों के ओपिनियंस में बहुत डिफरेंस ज्यादा हो, so that becomes a chasm, right? और that is also an abyss, so abysmal difference होता है. Anything that is abysmal means huge. If it is talking about the difference, तो क्योंकि gap तो उसका basic word है, ठीक है, so gap के हिसाब से chasm या abyss आ सकता है. I hope you have understood this now. So let us read the sentence again. The common refrain among policymakers, refrain मतलब बार बार वही बोलते हैं, ठीक है. So around the world has been that policy innovation and regulatory frameworks are almost always playing catch up with technology. That gap must not become a chasm. The AI revolution is likely to have serious implications on labor, education, authenticity of content, and its authorship, and much else. Anticipating possible futures requires engagement with the opportunities and challenges flagged by ChatGPT. Flagged means झंडा दिखाना, highlight करना, बताना, signal करना. This is a word that we have done many times. Regulation which does not stymie innovation is one aspect of this. Stymie मतलब उसे break करना, उसे hold करना, उसे रोक लगाना. This is what you can understand. But equally important is mapping out and planning for the changes that will be required in the education system, labor codes, and new commodities that are bound to emerge as a result. Doing so with a degree of success would mean that India's demographic dividend, its large young and working age population, can be leveraged for decades. कई सालों तक ये फिर इनका यूज चलता रहेगा. अगर नहीं कर पाए तो प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट होगी. दिस इज गोइंग टू टेक अ हैवी टोल. दैट मीन्स बहुत ज्यादा नुकसान होगा. जैसे टोल यू कैन रिलेट टू द टोल नाका, वहां पे टोल दिया जाता है ना, तो वो it is something that you have to pay, the cost you have to pay. So now if they will be if they fail in doing so, in using the working age people, right, according to the increase in the advancement in the technology, and if they fail to do so, then they are going to, it's going to cost them a lot. Problem में आ जाएंगे. That is the parting shot that the author has given. So, vocabulary, here it comes. I have discussed these words when we were reading only. Right. यहाँ पे ऐसा कोई वर्ड नहीं है, बस एक वर्ड है जो अब मैं तुम्हें बताऊंगी. What you have to do, that is your extra shot. ठीक है. व्हाइट कॉलर जॉब्स हमें पता है ऑफिस से रिलेटेड जॉब्स होते हैं. यू हैव डन द ब्लू कॉलर जॉब्स. आई एम राइटिंग इट हियर. यू हैव डन द ब्लू कॉलर जॉब्स, दैट इज फिजिकल लेबर करने वाले जो रहते हैं. सो दे कैन बी द artisans, the craftsmen, the mason, ठीक है, जो भी मजदूरी करने वाले लोग होते हैं वो ब्लू कॉलर जॉब्स होंगे. जो ऑफिस वाले लोग होते हैं वो व्हाइट कलर जॉब्स होते हैं. लेकिन रेड कॉलर जॉब्स भी होते हैं. देयर आर द रेड कॉलर जॉब्स एंड देयर इज द येलो कॉलर जॉब्स, राइट. So the red collar jobs are the people who are in the government, right? And how did they now if you can relate to the word red tapeism, ठीक है, जहां पर ये ब्यूरोक्रेसी और ये सब चलता है. रेड टेपिज्म यानी गवर्नमेंट के लोग हैं, अपने हिसाब से ही चलेंगे बस, ये सब होता है ऑफिशियस पूरा. इट हैपेंस नो. So red collar jobs and red tapeism, that means red is related to government. And why so? Because then there's a new thing there, that earlier the government employees were given a budget that was named as the red budget. तो वो रेड, अभी बजट की बात हो रही है तो एक और चीज समझ में आई है कि रेड बजट से ही इनको दिया जाता था पैसा, इनकी जो सैलरीज होती थी. इसीलिए रेड कॉलर जॉब्स हो गया गवर्नमेंट जॉब्स. येलो कॉलर जॉब्स अब कौन से हुए? जो कि क्रिएटिव होते हैं. ठीक है, जर्नलिस्ट हो सकते हैं, फोटोग्राफर्स हो सकते हैं. ऑल फ्रॉम द क्रिएटिव फील्ड्स विल बी द येलो कॉलर जॉब्स. फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट फील्ड विल बी द रेड कॉलर जॉब्स. फ्रॉम द Manual labor, physical labor field will be the blue collar jobs, and the office administrative field will be the white collar jobs. जो ऑफिस में काम करते हैं, टेक्नोलॉजी पे काम करते हैं, जो दिमाग यूज करते हैं, white collar jobs. ठीक है, I hope you have learned something new today, and that's all for today. So thank you and have a very logical day ahead.